So here's the deal. It was one chilly night in late October when I decided to go for a walk in Central Park. You know, just to clear my head and maybe get some cool night shots with my camera. The park is different at night, man. Real quiet, kinda eerie, and there aren't many people hanging around. I was walking down one of those winding paths, the kind that makes you feel like you're not even in the city anymore. The moon was playing hide and seek behind the clouds, making it pretty dark, and all I had was my camera flash lighting up bits and pieces of the path. I headed towards this old bridge in the park. It's called the Bow Bridge. Looks kind of spooky at night, all Victorian and majestic. I thought it'd make a great photo with the weird shadows and all. Just as I was setting up my camera, I heard some noise from the bushes, just rustling leaves and stuff, but it spooked me good. Then out of nowhere, this dude steps out onto the path. He looked rough, clothes all messed up, and he had this wild look in his eyes. I tried to keep it cool, nodded at him and tried to walk around. But this guy, he steps right in front of me and stops me. He's like, "Beautiful night, isn't it?" I'm trying not to show I'm scared, so I just agree and say something dumb like it's time for him to head home. But he laughs, this creepy cold laugh, and says, "Oh, I am home," and waves his hand all around the park like he owns the place. He tells me real serious, "You shouldn't be here, not now." I'm freaked out, right? I just want to get out of there, but he grabs my arm hard and points at the bridge, telling me to look. I didn't want to, but I did, and man, I wish I hadn't. There's this ghostly woman, kind of glowing, just floating across the bridge like she's got no care in the world, and then she just vanishes on the other side. The guy lets go of me and steps back into the shadows, disappearing as quick as he appeared. I didn't stick around to let anything else weird happen. I packed up my stuff and got out of there fast, heart pounding the whole way back to the streetlights and the normal city noise. But dude, every time I hear a noise behind me now, I swear it feels like she's there. That ghostly woman from the bridge, still following me.
So, there I was, deciding to hit up Central Park real late one night. Felt like doing something different, Plus, I figured it'd be cool to see the park when it's all quiet and not crawling with tourists. I started my walk right after midnight. It was one of those nights where the air's got a bit of a nip, and the leaves were all crunchy under my feet. The place was pretty much deserted, which made every little sound kinda loud and spooky. Every rustle in the bushes had me looking over my shoulder. I walked deeper into the park, away from the streetlights and into the shadows. The darkness kinda swallows you up in there. With just the faint glow of the moon peeking through the clouds now and then, the paths were barely visible. I kept my phone's flashlight on to not trip over anything. It's a whole other world in there at night. Feels like you've stepped into some old ghost story. As I neared the middle of the park, near one of those big old statues, I heard footsteps. Not just any footsteps, but the kind that sounded like someone was trying to be sneaky. I stopped, turned off my light, and listened. Silence. Then the steps started again, this time faster. It freaked me out enough to start walking fast toward a more lit part of the park. That's when I saw him, a dude, tall and wearing this beat-up old coat, just standing there staring at me. His face was kinda hidden by the hood of his coat, but I could see his eyes, and man, they were intense. I gave him a nod, trying to act cool like I wasn't scared. He didn't move or say anything, just watched me pass by. I kept walking, my heart pounding in my chest, but figured I'd lost him until I reached the pond. That's when things got real weird. The pond was super still, and as I stood there trying to calm down, I saw something in the water. At first, I thought it was just the reflection of the moon, but then it moved. It was a woman, pale and sort of glowing, walking on the water, heading toward the other side. She looked sad, man, like she was lost or something. As soon as she reached the edge of the pond, she just vanished, poof, like smoke. I rubbed my eyes, thinking I was seeing things, but then I heard the guy's voice right behind me. "You saw her, didn't you?" he said, almost whispering. I spun around, and there he was, just a few feet away. He told me she comes back every now and then, looking for something or someone. I didn't stick around to hear more. I booked it back to the brighter streets, glancing behind me every few seconds. Once I got out of the park, I didn't stop running until I reached my apartment. Now, Every time I think about going back to Central Park at night, I remember that woman in the pond and the guy who seemed to know too much about her. It's given me enough chills to last a lifetime, and I'm not sure I'll ever feel the same about Central Park again.
I'd always found something magical about Central Park after dark, a serene escape from the nonstop buzz of New York City. So, despite the warnings and odd looks from friends, I made it a habit to take midnight strolls. But one late autumn evening, my peaceful walks would change forever, leaving me haunted by the shadows and whispers of the park. That night, as the city hummed quietly in the distance, I wrapped my scarf tighter against the crisp chill that seemed to sink deep into the bones. The park was shrouded in darkness, lit only by the occasional flicker of lampposts and the soft glow of the moon peeking through moving clouds. The rustle of fallen leaves underfoot seemed to echo off the path, mingling with distant city sounds. I ventured deeper into the park, drawn to the Bethesda Terrace. It was there that the ambience of the park always felt thickest, as if stepping through a veil into another world. The air felt denser, and the usual sounds of nightlife were oddly muted. I paused near the fountain, its waters still, reflecting the sporadic moonlight like a dark mirror. As I stood there, lost in the eerie beauty of the scene, a cold breeze whispered past, carrying with it a faint, almost imperceptible murmur. I shivered, pulling my jacket closer, when suddenly, across the water, a figure appeared. It was a woman, dressed in what seemed like a flowing gown that shimmered with a light of its own. She glided over the surface of the pond gracefully, her movements soundless, her presence otherworldly. I blinked hard, thinking my eyes were playing tricks on me, but when I looked again, she was still there, closer now. The woman's face was sorrowful yet strikingly beautiful, her eyes locked with mine in a gaze I couldn't escape. Paralyzed by a mix of fear and fascination, I felt an inexplicable urge to speak to her, to understand who she was. "Who are you?" I found myself whispering into the night. No reply came, and the woman continued to move closer, stopping just at the edge of the pond. The air around us thickened, and the soft murmur became clearer, now a whisper carried directly to me on the breeze. "Lost, so lost." The voice sighed, laden with such sadness that it pulled at my heart. Unnerved yet unable to tear myself away, I watched as she reached out a hand toward me. The gesture was gentle, almost pleading. My own hand lifted in response, driven by a force I couldn't understand. Just as our fingers were inches apart, a cloud covered the moon, plunging us into darkness. When the light returned, she was gone, as if she had never been there at all. I stood frozen, my heart racing, my mind struggling to process what had happened. The sound of my own breathing seemed loud in the sudden silence that enveloped the park. With a final glance at the now undisturbed surface of the pond, I turned and hurried back along the path that had brought me there, the whispers still echoing in my ears. Every night since, I've felt the pull of the terrace, a tug at my curiosity and fear. The park no longer feels like my serene escape, but rather a place of unanswered questions and ghostly memories. Yet I know I'll return, drawn back in hopes of seeing her again, the glowing woman of the pond, and perhaps finding the answers to the mysteries she left behind.